So it had a dinosaur 3D like LED light.
Oh, nice.
So I'll send that too. I know I'm like
Julie, do you have Amanda on?
Yes, I
Yep.
do.
yeah, shopping for other people's kids.
They love the dinosaur.
Dinosaur blow up story was funny.
Pop.
You can overdo it on protein.
Oh.
Your body can only process so much protein.
You all set, Jim?
Yes, Mayor.
Cool. Welcome, everyone, to the City of Evans City Council meeting for November 16th, 2021. I'm Brown Reed, the mayor. I'll call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mayor Rudy?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Clark?
Here.
Councilmember Steer?
Here.
Councilmember Johnson?
Present.
Councilmember Neal?
President.
Councilmember Castle?
Here.
Councilmember Mortensen?
Here.
Next item on the agenda is audience participation. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address City Council on any item not on the agenda this evening? I see two. But any order you guys want to go, please step up to the podium and state your name and address.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Stephen Grant, 2405 Dock Drive, Evans, Colorado. I want to thank you for the good work that you do and also just bring something to your attention that I've noticed. I was out and about, and since I'm a pastor, I'm out at night frequently, and I've been noticing on some of our main thoroughfares we have quite a few street lights out. And I've noticed it on 35th Avenue and also 37th Street, among others. And I think one of the things that we might be dealing with is the fact that I know that, if you see a light out, you get the pole number and you call it in and such. But lights are noticed most to be out at night, and then people forget. So I just wanted to bring it to your attention, and I was wondering if there was something that might be done with just a periodic drive-through in the evenings, at least to the main thoroughfares, to make notice of some certain lights or poles. For example, I noticed on 35th Avenue right now, just as you come down the hill from about 32nd Street down to 37th, there were 6 or 7 lights out. So, just wanted to bring it to your attention.
Really glad you brought it to our attention.
Yeah.
Somebody's taking notes right now as you're doing it. I can see him typing away. And then, Jim, do we have somebody that drives around kind of at night checking for that kind of thing?
Periodically. But it may have been a while since we've done that. So
Okay.
It's time to do it again. Thank you, Mr.
You're
Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ma'am, I saw you next. Welcome. Thanks for being here. Please state your name for the record.
I'm Lindsay Redman, and I live at 3026 High Drive. Never been to a meeting before, so this is a first for me. So the concern I have, and a few of my neighbors have, is the amount of traffic and speeding that is going down High Drive, especially since they redid that light there on 32nd Street. So nobody wants to go to the light. They think they can just go as fast as they can down our residential street. And a lot of them are from those apartments, but a lot of them aren't. They're just people.
Are those the Legend Flat apartments?
What are they called?
I'm not
The
sure.
Verge.
Yeah,
Yeah.
The Verge.
The Verge.
The Verge.
Thanks for that.
Yeah. I've lived there 29 years, so I lived there even before the Verge was, and it got really bad when those apartments, and I would even get in my car and follow people to the, you've got to slow down. This is a residential street. And anyway, since the light, it's gotten really bad.
Well, our city manager will get your name and phone number from you if we can.
Okay.
And our next steps from there usually are we'll get in touch with Chief Grant, who I know is listening, and we could probably get one of those radar screens out there that'll show people how fast they're going and speeding. And that's how they kind of get a count and see how fast cars are going there. So that'd probably be our first step.
Okay.
But I'll definitely have our city manager get your phone number.
Because it's both ways. It's people coming, what west on 32nd, don't want to go to the light, so they just go turn down High Drive. And then people going south on 11th Avenue, same thing. They don't want to go to the light, so they come down High Drive and then turn left onto 32nd.
Okay.
But it's not that they're really going way too fast.
Sure.
Yeah. So, okay.
That'll be our first steps to start from that.
Okay.
If you can get your phone number.
If we can make sure we have your phone number. In fact, Randy, could you make sure we have contact information, please? Thanks.
And Jim, I've noticed that on Lakeside Drive too.
Which street?
Lakeside Drive, which
Yeah.
blocks.
Yeah.
There's a lot of.
Yeah, it's the same area.
There's drag racing down my street.
Yeah.
Two abreast.
All right, is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to address City Council on any item not on the agenda this evening? Anyone virtually? Is there any changes to the agenda, anyone?
I move to approve the agenda.
I second.
Motion and second to approve the agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Opposed, nay? Thank you very much. Motion passes. Next item, consent agenda. Item 1, approval of the November 2nd, 2021 City Council meeting minutes. Item 2, consideration of ordinance number 752-21, prohibited residency of sex offenders, second reading. And item 3, consideration of resolution number 29-2021, ratifying the appointment of certain nominees to the Board of Trustees of the High Plains Library District.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Next item, old business. Item 4, consideration of resolution number 13-2021, adopting the Weld County Hazard Mitigation Plan. We'll hear from staff.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, members of the council. For the last year, probably more like a year and a half, the Weld County Office of Emergency Management, along with many of the municipalities in the county, have worked together to develop an updated multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan, and that's the plan that we're asking your consideration tonight. The actual plan is more than 500 pages long. I believe we have links for you and for the public, but we did not print that off for the meeting tonight, but we can make that available. Instead, we summarized the purpose of the plan, the goals of the plan. In general, those are to develop some coordinated efforts and awareness of the various risks that we may need to mitigate from time to time. It also took a community-specific look at what the risks could be and what some of those could be for Evans. I'll note that the last one of these plans was done in 2016, and the city of Evans received some credit for completing its objectives coming out of that plan. The city-specific objectives that came out of this plan are a couple of capital projects. One is the 31st Street stormwater outfall, which is intended to mitigate flooding on the east side of town. That's one that's part of your east side storm drainage project, and actually one that you'll be hearing a little bit more about later tonight. There's also a project for some inlets on a street where they're greatly needed, the bay at the landings, inlet flood mitigation project, and that has been completed. And then finally, they are recommending a community impact study for sheltering vulnerable populations in the case of an emergency. And we think that will follow on with much of the master planning work that we've been done, and we'll wrap that piece up in the coming year. So with that, we are, in order to, and really this is the main goal, or the very practical goal, is that adopting the plan as a city satisfies one of the primary requirements from FEMA to maintain our eligibility for certain federal hazard mitigation or disaster funding programs. So that's really beyond the mitigation strategies. It's very important that we keep that eligibility. So with that, be glad to answer any questions, and we're seeking your consideration of the resolution to adopt the hazard mitigation plan.
Thank you, Jim. Any questions of staff or comments?
No questions.
Amanda, you have anything?
Nope, I sure don't.
No questions or comments? I entertain a motion.
I move to adopt resolution number 13-2021.
Second.
Second.
A motion and a second to adopt resolution number 13-2021. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Next item, new business. Public hearing, consideration of ordinance number 749-21, adopting Evans wastewater pretreatment regulations. We'll open the public hearing and we'll hear from staff.
Thank you, Mayor. At Council's work session on November 2nd, you heard a work session, had some questions and discussion on a proposed wastewater pretreatment regulation that would be part of our municipal code if it is adopted. So following that work session, Council directed that staff bring this back as an ordinance for incorporation into our code. Since we did think this was it was important, we did treat this as a public hearing since there could be some costs involved for some of our businesses, and for that purpose, and since this is now we're seeking your action tonight, Assistant City Manager Randy Reedy and our wastewater superintendent Robbie Porsche will give a more abbreviated overview of the program that will contain much of the information that you heard at the work session, but we think it's important for the public to hear it too. So with that, I'll turn it over to Randy and Robbie.
Thank you, Jim. Yes, as Jim mentioned, at your last work session, we did have an extended discussion of this. So we did attach the entire slide deck for the PowerPoint to your agenda memo and the ordinance itself for members of the public and for the record. So we'll just briefly go through those tonight and address your questions. You did have a couple questions at the last meeting that we will address as well in just a moment here. But just as a quick reminder, the overall goals of the program, there are several, but they boil down to three basic things. One has to do with the water quality. We do need to comply with the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination Permit that the wastewater treatment plant has, and this is one way that helps to do that. Secondly, we don't want to have substances or pollutants enter into the wastewater treatment system that will cause the treatment or damage the treatment infrastructure and cause interference with that. Thirdly, the treatment capacity of the wastewater treatment plant is something that we've all been focused on for the last several months now. You're all very much aware of that. We want to do everything we can to maximize that treatment capacity and get every ounce of treatment from that treatment plant that we possibly can. And then lastly, but certainly not least, protecting staff and public health from the intervention of anything that's either poisonous or could be explosive into the system. The businesses involved with this in Evans, there are really kind of three different groups. The industrial users, IUs is what they're called, that are basically known as non-domestic sources of indirect discharge. There are a couple different types of them. There's significant industrial users that do discharge an average of over 25,000 gallons per day of wastewater, or take up over 5% of the wastewater treatment plant capacity. And then there's another kind of special group that's recognized nationwide by the EPA. They're called categorical industrial users. And those fall under national limits for pollutants. They are things like meat processing plants, chemical and pharmaceutical manufacturers, dairy processing, textile mills, petroleum refining, rubber manufacturing, those kind of businesses that are industries, are actually kind of heavy industries that do have significant wastewater flows. So what are we talking about in Evans? We're talking about a first scan at the 130 or so commercial wastewater customers that we currently have. Many of those, of course, are offices or are retail stores that are basically discharging just domestic flow. So they don't need to do anything at all. There are 46 facilities of those 130, though, that are involved with food service or food production. And we do have taken an initial scan of those, recognize that there is one categorical industrial user that we currently have in Innovative Foods. They've been working with us on their expansion to contain and dispose of their animal waste that they'll be producing. And the good news is that most of our customers are already in compliance. Our best estimate on the early scan is about 8 to 10. Usually smaller restaurants, smaller, perhaps older restaurants, don't have any kind of grease traps or pretreatment facilities right now. And so we want to work with them and get them into compliance. There are a number of prohibited discharges, but this, again, can be simplified that anything that goes through the system, called pass-through, or that interferes with the system, or that poses a threat to public health is what, on a nationwide basis, is considered to be prohibited. And there is quite a list, but I think they all make sense. The pretreatment standards here in Evans, keeping in mind that we do just have the one categorical user, our biggest concerns are fats, oils, greases, of course the BOD, and any kind of high sources of suspended solids that will make the wastewater treatment plant work extra hard to clean those up. The best management practices to do that are pretty straightforward. The first one is on-site treatment to reduce the flow that's coming into the system. And secondly, there's a choice, and it's actually a more common choice, a more popular choice among a lot of industries. It's a choice that Innovative Foods has made to contain and then properly dispose of their prohibited discharges. The pretreatment facilities include some on-site treatment systems, restricted discharge systems that really slow down the rate of flow, and then those storage and flow controls facilities, as well as monitoring equipment, just to note if there are any changes in either the rate or the type of flow that's happening. Bobby spent a great deal of time at your last meeting, and we won't do it again unless you have questions, talking about the two types of grease traps and grease interceptors. Grease traps typically used for small restaurants. These are under sink installations with a little diagram of how those work. It's basically designed to separate the greases and oils, make those rise to the top and be able to be drained off. And then for very large operations, larger restaurants may have an underground grease interceptor. It would be underground, typically in an alley or on the side of the building, that basically does the same thing, but on a much larger scale with thousands of gallons being able to be processed. I had a question at your last meeting about maintenance of these and who'd be able to clean these. We have had a chance to check into that. There are 34 companies that are on the Weld County approved list of septic and grease trap pumping companies. And so any one of those 34 can respond to requests to either assist with, and most of the smaller grease traps don't need them. They can be handled by the operator, but the larger grease interceptors handled by the same companies that handle septic tanks and clean them. So pretty straightforward operation there. There are a number of notification and reporting requirements, basically common sense, just to make sure that if there's any change in discharge or any potential problems, including a slug discharge that shouldn't go into the system but actually does, it's really important for Robbie to be notified of those so that the plant and the staff are alerted and can take appropriate action. And then lastly, as far as implementation, one of the things, there are several things that we want to do to make sure this is a successful program and to ease into the implementation for all of our businesses. There are 5 steps we want to take for this. First is to focus on education and outreach, and not come down with a heavy hand at all, but to work with those 130, more like 46 producers of industrial discharge. We have asked and specifically written this ordinance, if you approve it, to go into effect in about 90 days instead of the typical 30 days after second reading. So this would go into effect on March 1st of 2022. We've also built in a 6-month delay, if you will, or period for coming into compliance after initial inspection. So what will happen after March 1st is that wastewater staff will go around to these businesses, do some initial inspections. Those that are out of compliance would then sort of be on a clock, a 6-month clock, if you will, to comply. We don't want to stop there, though, and thank you for your ideas, Mayor and Council members, to expand the use of the storefront improvement program to allow up to $500 for grease trap purchases for some of those smaller restaurants that may still be struggling coming out of COVID. So their total cost is probably in the neighborhood of $1,000. The city would offset half of that through that storefront improvement program through economic development. And we will also be waiving the plumbing permit fee for those folks. That could be $75 to $100 additional for that for that permit and inspection. Compliance and enforcement is very straightforward. There were some periodic inspections, monitoring equipment if necessary, and then some enforcement remedies that are built into the ordinance that we hope never to have to use. We would expect or would hope that we'd be able to stop at notification of violation and then work with our businesses to get them back into compliance. But as most anything like this, the penalty to the city can be quite severe, up to $10,000 per violation if we're violating our discharge permit into the river. So we do want to have some remedies. We've worked with the attorney's office to make sure that these are appropriate and rising slowly in terms of consequence. With that, I would say that the Water and Sewer Board did look at all of the terms of this ordinance at their August meeting and have recommended approval to you. And with that, we'll take any questions and be happy to recommend approval of first reading of this ordinance.
Thank you. The public hearing, is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of this item? Seeing none, is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in opposition to this item? Okay, council, questions for staff at this point?
I have no questions.
I actually have a question, and I can't see it right now in the ordinance, but I wanted to, in your report, it made it sound, not the report you just gave, but your written report, made it sound like the only people that were going to get a waiver were the people who, for the city's permit, were the people that were participating in the extended storefront. So I just wanted to be sure that it's a waiver to these 46 businesses, even if they choose not to go for the $500.
We'd like the program to be extended to all of them, all 46 restaurants. We can certainly do that.
I mean, was that,
Rephrase it one more time. Amy.
okay, so in the discussion from the last time, we had, upon your suggestion,
Yep.
we had waived that fee.
Yep.
And the way that it was worded in the report here is that the only fee that will be waived is if they participate in the storefront
Okay.
reimbursement. And I wanted to make sure that it was to anyone, regardless of whether they wanted to get the city's participation finances.
Okay.
I have no problem with that.
And that is not a feature that's in the ordinance. It's running parallel with the ordinance, so you don't need to change
Okay.
anything in the ordinance.
Yeah, so that was my next question, was it, that's why I said I couldn't see it in the ordinance, so I just wanted to be sure that we offered that waiver to everyone, regardless if they choose to use the city money.
Just to be clear, that's
Right.
Okay, got it.
everyone retrofitting?
Retrofitting,
Yeah,
right,
yes,
yeah. Okay,
yes.
very good. We'll do that.
And you said that the wastewater treatment staff itself will be making these inspections, not the building inspector that we've hired.
No, Safe Built does look for these in new installations. It's part of the building permit and inspection process. But for these existing buildings that don't require building inspections per se, it'll be on wastewater staff to take care of that.
Thank you.
They'll be inspecting the plumbing retrofit, but as far as inspecting the businesses themselves for compliance with the ordinance, that'll be wastewater staff, as there are plumbing official.
Rob, you'll have an extra couple ties in the office for when he goes out.
Comments for later. Amanda, do you have anything? Any questions?
No, I just appreciate the changes for our last conversation, but nothing further.
I guess I had the one question. I don't know that, to the best of your knowledge, you said 8 or 10 restaurants will have to probably get the under sink ones. Do you think, is there an outside chance that anyone will have to get the larger 3,000 gallon?
We are hoping not, and we are working with a current restaurant going through our planning department to work with them as they retrofit currently to work with them on their practices to keep it under sink if possible.
My hesitation there is I'm a restaurant owner for the general public knowledge. That's about $5,000 or $6,000 to put in, not $1,000, and that's on the low side. So need to be aware of that too. If we're asking if somebody's been in business for 12 years, hey, tear up your floor and put in this $6,000 deal, that's a lot to ask of somebody.
The bigger installations we're trying to catch and be proactive with as remodeling and things come through planning. So that can hopefully be calculated in if they're starting a new business or repurposing a building.
Any other questions?
Yes. Is it possible under the education and outreach aspect to also, I know we're like focusing on the restaurants, but is it possible to also focus just on residents as well, like kind of like practices to not, discard oils in their drain? I mean, can we include that like as a educational outreach as well? I mean, I think numbers, we have a lot of residents that, if you the total number of residents doing it can also be a big factor. So.
Of course, yes.
Right. There was special attention to that during COVID nationwide for kind of the strange things that people were throwing down their toilets.
Yeah, we worked during that time frame in the beginning with our communications manager just to put posts out on Facebook and a quick snippet on the city website that the triple P's, pee, pooper, paper, nothing else, be flushed.
Any other comments? Or, excuse me, questions? I will close the public hearing now. It's comments.
Definitely in favor of this. I do hope and encourage businesses that need to get the under sink grease traps or any of the other type of grease traps to definitely take advantage of the $500 to help assist them with that.
What else? Hearing.
Yeah, I echo what Mayor said. I do agree that incentivizing having a program that incentivizes restaurant owners, partake in it would be definitely advantageous for them. Not only that, to assist them.
No other comments? I would entertain a motion.
I move to adopt ordinance number 74921-21 on first reading, adopting City of Evans wastewater pretreatment regulations as part of Chapter 13 in the Evans Municipal Code.
Second.
Motion a second to adopt ordinance number 749-21 on first reading. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Next item, consideration of Evans East Side Storm Sewer Construction Advanced Work Change Order. We'll hear from staff.
Thank you, Mayor. As our city engineer is approaching the staff table, I'll just introduce that this is a project that has been in the works and will continue in the works. It's a major project on the east side of town. This specific change order relates to the 31st Street project. And as you'll hear from Mark, we had an opportunity, even as we're doing design, to clear out a major problem that's been an issue for us for many, many years. So we did that. We think it'll give the city some real relief. But now we need to true up the contract for this work that would have been done as part of the actual construction. So if I haven't stolen all of Mark's thunder on this change order, I'll ask him to give an overview of the work and what we need tonight.
Thanks, Jim. Good evening, Mayor, members of council. As Jim said, we started this project even before BT got on the job. We actually tried to videotape that entire storm sewer from the west side all the way to the channel, and we only got maybe 100 feet east of 85 before we ran into a sediment that the camera just couldn't get through. So we knew we had a problem, and that's part of the reason why that intersection floods in the first place. The storm sewers are just full of sediment, the lack of maintenance, and just over time. The original contract with BT was intended to primarily clean out the pipes that are underneath the tracks, because those are the ones that had the biggest risk for us if they were damaged or potentially could create a catastrophe of the railroad tracks settling or collapsing underneath them. So that was the original intent of the contract, and that's why it was only for a small amount of pipe. The pipe on the north side of the tracks, the road in the grass, perfectly clean. We didn't have to worry about it. So when we got in, we were like, fine. We get to the other pipe, the CMP pipe, which was installed probably about 60 years ago, and we couldn't get through it. And so we ended up cleaning it and cleaning it and cleaning it. And in your packet, there's some photos of the pre and post cleaning of the pipe, and you can see sediment built up halfway up the pipe, which is the spring line. And I crawled in there with the guys when they were getting in there to clean it, and you couldn't see down the pipe. So we knew that was going to be a problem. And then the other thing I was worried about with that old CMP is, over time, CMP rots, for want of a better word. It rusts, it wears out, and the bottom half of the pipe you can see is all brown, and the top half of the pipe is still the gray silver color that you would normally see with corrugated metal pipe. So that was part of we needed to see that in order to figure out what we were going to do, because the railroad would love us to install a brand new pipe at a huge dollar number, and I'd rather not do that. So what we came up with as part of the project was to actually line that pipe to extend its life and make it essentially last for hopefully another 50 or 60 years. So in the process of doing all that cleaning, we decided, since there were more pipes upstream that needed to be cleaned out, and we had the equipment, the back truck, the Union Pacific guys were there to watch us. We decided if we're going to have them there, we might as well do it all in one fell swoop. So we had the contractor extend the amount of pipe that we cleaned. We cleaned 7 times as much pipe as we originally priced, but the price, as you noted in the staff comments, price is only about 5 times more than the original contract. So with that, the idea was that we would have done all this work anyways, because that would have been part of the construction project. Just we opened up those pipes now, so now we already have a benefit even before construction starts, that we have a storm sewer that functions to a better degree than it did prior to the cleaning of the pipes. So that's why we did it up front, rather than wait and have them come back and pay additional time for the Union Pacific guys, for the mobilization and other additional costs. So I thought it was a great move on our part. We just need to square up, like Jim said, square up the contract with BT Construction because of the additional time and effort that they put into it. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions or tell you more about the pictures.
I have a question. So,
yeah, please.
So what is the diameter of the pipe?
One of them is 42 and
oblong.
42 inches and 54 inches.
42 and 52, and it's about like 10 to 12 inches of like sediment.
The sediment in some of them was halfway up the pipe, so the spring line is the midpoint of the pipe.
So, like for example, the 41 would have been like 20.5 inches of sediment.
Yeah.
Wow.
You couldn't crawl in those pipes.
That is do you foresee that reoccurring? Like, I know we're trying to mitigate that, but I mean, do you foresee something similar to that occurring with those pipes, considering that they're so large? And then also, do you see reoccurring?
Well, yes and no. It will reoccur if we don't do preventative measures. And our Public Works Department, Scott Sanders, has been working to do some pipe cleaning throughout the city. And one of the other things we're looking at is trying to intercept that sediment at the inlets rather than allowing it to get in the pipe. And there's a product that we're going to try out on a couple of inlets on the 37th Street Phase 1, some of the inlets over on Idaho, and then the inlets on the 23rd Avenue Widening that actually goes into the inlet itself. It catches the sediment as it comes in through the top of the inlet. And then all you have to do is pull out the lid, yank the bag out, and put a new bag in. It takes about 5 or 10 minutes. And it's a relatively inexpensive, maintenance-free, or maintenance-easy, I guess would be the appropriate term, to keep the sediment out of the pipes. Because given the terrain, the pipes are going to be flat. The water doesn't move very quickly unless it's a lot of water. And if it's flat and it's slow, then the sediment settles out. So if we can keep it out of the pipes by catching it, that'll be the best way to do it. But over time, we will have to spend some money on an annual basis to do pipe cleaning.
Just Mayor and Council, to kind of connect the dots with some of your budget work. Two 2 years ago, the council funded a new stormwater division within our operations function. And so this year, for instance, one of our goals has been to not only have our crews out there doing their work on the surface, but also to begin a pretty aggressive stormwater jetting program of all of our pipes. And one of our goals for this year was that we would jet approximately 25% of our system, and I'm pleased to tell you that we did that. So this is in addition to that, but we're trying to get on a cycle where we actually have some budget now for contract stormwater pipe jetting. So we'll be able to kind of stay on this more. Prior to a couple years ago, we never had a dedicated stormwater function, and these kinds of things were approached kind of as they could with time. So I think that'll be a good investment for us each year.
I do agree, and it would be nice to also have like periodic reports on that to ensure that remains cleared and what that looks like, just to be proactive, especially in that area since it tends to flood a lot. And we have a lot of businesses. I think that would definitely be a great approach to be proactive before anything.
Well, we can track that in our GIS. When we do work on a pipe, whether it be a water line or a storm sewer, generally they'll do a work order, and then they'll send an update to our GIS people, and they can put in when it was last jetted, when it was last cleaned out, and so we can go back and double check that. And if somebody wants to know when it was, we can tell them. And that's just a click on the GIS.
Any questions or comments?
Mark, I believe you said that, told me earlier that you didn't think that this, or you couldn't find any records that this had ever been cleaned out in the last 40 years.
Wow.
Checked, or
Those records may be long.
Yeah. Well, I've been sitting here envisioning all the flooding that I've seen in that area the last 40 years. It's like it seems like somebody would have thought about getting in there and doing something with it, hopefully.
With that large of a pipe, though, you have to have a very big piece of equipment. They actually had to bring a bigger piece of equipment up from Denver after the first day. So the first piece wasn't big enough.
Well, I'm glad it's done, and hopefully we can keep on track with trying to keep the pipes cleaned out. Don't experience it should help tremendously, I think, with flooding issues already. If we get the additional work done, it'll only hopefully improve the whole mess along there. Thank you.
Thanks.
So what did they do with all the sediment? It seems like a lot.
Most of it was taken over to wastewater 1, and it's in a pile over there on the north side of the lagoons. That's where we'll take our gravel, our dirt, anything like that, we'll take over there, and then any kind of milled asphalt we take to the Public Works operations for reuse. And some of that material can be used as fill if we need fill in some places.
Okay. I was just wondering if we were reusing it, because I certainly have the benefit of using some of this that, ends up into my ditch from the city side. So I'm glad to hear that we're reusing it in other places. That's very nice to know. And the thing that I want to say that I probably should bite my tongue a little bit saying, I hate to wish this on us, but it will be very interesting to see how this drains when we get one of those 3 inches in 20 minutes kind of a rain that we haven't had in quite some time. I don't want to see that happen, but I am on the flip side kind of curious to see how much this actually helps helps the drainage. It would be kind of nice if this was the cure and we didn't have to spend a whole lot of money rerouting things and putting in new pipe. But anyways, I'm pretty excited about this getting gutted out. I do know that there's been conversation in the past that this needed to be done. And it wasn't done, obviously, for different reasons. Mostly, I think, because of personnel, not, and finances. So I'm glad that we finally got this done. I say we. You guys.
I just want to say you nailed it. Great job on taking advantage of a situation. Have them out there, find a better use for it. Sure, it costs a little more money, but look how much more you got done. So, great job on doing that there. That was great. Amanda, you got anything to add?
No, not that hasn't been said before. Just also thank you for the hard work here.
There's no other discussion? Your motion?
I move to approve the change order to the contract with BT Construction Incorporated for the East Side Storm Sewer 31st Street Outfall Project in the amount of $87,710.62, increasing the not-to-exceed contract amount to $246,289.97.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the change order for the contract with BT Construction. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Item report, City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. 3 brief things. First of all, if you haven't driven it today, I was very pleased to see, and I'll let you know that the asphalt paving on 47th Avenue is complete. That's great news, and it's not only great news because the project is just about complete, but also because the asphalt paving is the most temperature-sensitive work that they were doing. So it was important that we got that done before it got colder. Yourselves and the public will still see some finish work. We have some concrete collars and some striping to do before that road can be open, some kind of cleanup work. So that should be within a few days, could be next week, but prior to the holiday, Thanksgiving. And then you'll see the sidewalk work continuing till that's complete. Shouldn't be too much longer. And then we've asked them to certainly not try to complete landscaping work now at this time of year. So I do want to say publicly, give our contractors some credit, because they were effectively kind of postponed with their work on this project for 6 to 8 months while we kind of wrangled with Excel on some of their utility pole relocations. So they've hung with us, and we're real pleased to see this wrapping up at this point. So we're not all the way done, but we're real close. Next thing I want to mention is that we heard today, Council may recall that the landscaping project that you're seeing out in front of the complex is funded mostly through a grant with Northern Water, and the design was actually done by the Denver Botanic Gardens as a water saving, water safe. It's not safe, but water smart project. Thank you. We're pleased today. We heard from them that they are very pleased with the project, and they want to use this on their website and for some other promotional materials, just to highlight the Evans Community Complex and what a water smart landscape project can look like. So we're looking forward to what it will look like even as it grows out next year. So that was some nice news to hear. Finally, I'll ask, is Chief Brandt with us?
Yes, Jim, I am.
All right. I just want to mark the milestone. The chief is attending to some important personal family business tonight, so he couldn't be with us. But I can't let today go by without noting that today is the 40th anniversary of Chief Rick Brandt's service to law enforcement. It's a big milestone for anyone, and for any police officer or official. So we're very proud of Rick, of course, and I know that you are too. Since there was a lot going on for Rick today and this week, we thought we would come back on December 7th at your meeting, and we're planning a reception for the chief, and also we have some other surprises in mind. So you'll be pulled in on that as the planning finalizes. But we're real, of course, proud of our chief, and it's a major milestone in his career. You might notice on a police officer's uniform, they have bars on their sleeve for every 5 years of service. So I think I walked in on Rick ordering some shirts with really long sleeves now because he needs to fit more bars. So anyway, congratulations from us, Rick, and we're glad that you're going to be in service to us for even more.
Congrats, Chief.
Congratulations, Jamie. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah, I do need longer sleeves, and it has been my absolute honor and pleasure to serve for 4 years and to be at this stage of my life in the city of Evans. It's been an amazing ride, and couldn't imagine anything better. So thank you all very much.
That's all from me, Mayor.
City Attorney?
I have nothing to follow that, so
Next item on the agenda is audience participation. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address City Council on any item? Ma'am, thank you for coming. Please step up to right up here at the podium if you don't mind.
My stepson.
Wait, we have a microphone there.
I'm Susan Buck, and we live on High Drive, me and my husband. We have had all kinds of problems with speeders. They just don't pay attention. It's mainly the people living in the apartments, the complex that used to be the Groove. They changed the name. But they come down our street doing 60, 70 miles an hour. And as you know, there's a school on the other side. And we've had so many close calls. And it's just been just a nightmare. And now the coffee shop's going to be opening up. And people are speeding down our street. And I don't know why, but they'll turn to the coffee shop and just fly the coffee shop and then get back on 11. And I don't know what the solution is. In fact, there was several other neighbors that were going to try being here tonight. They all had something come up. But is it possible to get a speed bump or something? We've got 5 different apartments on that street. And, there's so many little kids. And then you've got school kids that are walking, going to school. A lot of the parents are working, so they're by themselves. And God forbid, if something would happen. But they're mainly kids, college students. They're just in a hurry, and they're just focused on getting to work or getting to school, and they're running late. And I don't know how many times I pulled out of our driveway, and I've just had to, hurry and get back in because they're coming down the street so fast. And I don't know what the solution is. I know the police would probably make a fortune giving tickets. I know a few years ago, about 5 or 6 years ago, there was one down on each side of the street. And I know they pulled over so many cars.
Susan, thanks for being here. Actually, you are. The second one, Lindsay Redmond was here.
Oh, okay.
A little bit earlier.
She's across the street. And then Sue Phelps and some others were going to be here, too.
So she spoke on the same issue you had, and we all understand where you're coming from. And Chief Brandt is listening, so I wouldn't be surprised if we do see a little more police presence out there. And one of the next steps we do, Chief Brandt will also, hopefully when it's available, we'll put out a speed radar thing that tells you how fast you're going there.
That would be a good idea.
It also keeps the counts of the speed of the cars. And that's the first step in determining what the next step would be going forward.
And there's been a couple of people that have stopped, they're doing 40 or 50, and they're like, well, it's 30 through here. And I'm like, no. There's speed limit signs on each side of the street. As you enter on High Drive, it says 25. They're like, oh, well, we didn't know that.
Mayor, I'm seeing on Zoom that I think you've explained our steps very well, but I think Chief Brandt might have an update on this circumstance that they're already working on. Chief, do you have an update?
Yeah, Jim, I have contacted my commander from when the first citizen spoke, and he has a sergeant assigned tonight to see if we can get the speed trailer moved. If not tonight, it will be moved this week to start monitoring traffic, and we will increase police presence in that area.
Thank you so much, and I really appreciate all the help because just a tragedy to lose a kid. And
yeah, and like I said, that's the first step. That thing will keep track of the speed of the cars, and then we can go.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for your time.
Is there anyone in the audience, anyone else in the audience who wishes to address City Council on any item? Okay. Right, next item is an executive session.
Move to go into an executive session to conduct the city manager's annual performance evaluation pursuant to CRS 24-6 Section 4, subsection F.
I second.
Motion is second to go into executive session. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion passes. We'll go to executive session. Fred, here's that